So everyone is talking about the holding penalty at the end. My opinion, I don't think it changed the outcome of the game. I don't think it was an egregiously bad call, but I don't think it should have been called in that moment. And I was watching Dan Orlovsky this morning. He was on Get Up and he was on First Take. His point was there was not a single holding penalty called in the entire game. And so he's like, so that's the one that you're going to call? He's like, if you think that kind of hold didn't happen all game long, you're crazy. So either you're calling it or you're not. And to call it in that situation, he thought was wrong. You played football, so I defer to you. What do you think of the holding at the end?
I agree with you called the entire game the same. And for you not to have ticky-tack fouls in the first, second, or third, and for that one to come, I agree 100% with that, Hawk. And to be honest, that wasn't a bad hold because I look at holds as if you really adjust the route of the receiver. If the receiver stumbles or turns or twists around, you redirected his path. The guy didn't redirect anything. Actually, the holding call, he was out of a break, so he couldn't redirect it because they were both standing still for a half a second to redirect. I think it was a terrible call, and I do believe you do not call that call. He would have had to rip the receiver's jersey off of his whole body to call the call in that situation.
Yeah, I agree. And he didn't even come up complaining. That was another part that Dan Orlovsky was pointing out. He didn't, you've seen receivers get held before and they're looking around for a flag and they're screaming. He wasn't even doing any of that. Now, would it change the outcome of the game? I don't know. So Kansas City would make that field goal. But what it did rob us and rob Jalen Hurts of was a minute to put together a drive to score a field goal to tie the game to send it to overtime. And Jalen Hurts was balling out. First half a little bit different than the second half for Philadelphia. I mean, it was a tale of two games for me. But it did rob us and Jalen Hurts of that opportunity to have a minute to get, into field goal range, which would have been super exciting.
Well, I think I disagree with you on that because the situation you just brought up, that is changing the game. Like that 3 points would have been 3 points, but that time it got off the clock, that was huge. And we talked about it all last week. This game's going to be single digits either way. There's going to be a last drive to win it or lose it, and that should have been the Eagles' last drive, Kansas City's Chiefs to stop them to win the game or send it to overtime, or hell, the Eagles could have scored and won. I think that did affect the game direly.
What about you, Solana? You watched it. What did you think?
I agree with Dan Orlovsky. Don't call that if you haven't been consistent with it the entire game. I think it changed the outcome of the game. I'm with Crowder. I agree. Would it have put Jalen Hurts in a situation where he has to drive the field to go win it? That's what everybody wants to see. You don't make that call in the first 3.5 quarters and then you call it on third down. Had it been first down, fine, right? Like it's not that big of a difference. Now it's first and goal. On third down, after the Eagles use up their timeouts, they get the stop, and you call that in that situation. There's certain times in sports where a penalty in soccer isn't a penalty in the World Cup final, even though it probably would have been a penalty during the regular season. There's fouls in the NBA. In the NBA Finals, Game 7, probably not a foul. You let them play through it. That situation, to me, you don't throw that flag. That official shouldn't ref in the Super Bowl again. That's how passionate I feel about it. Don't let him ref in the Super Bowl again.
And Solana, it was a great movie that the writers, they whiffed on the end. It was a great movie.
Yes.
I don't want to watch the Super Bowl end in a quarterback getting the ball and kneeling 5 yards deep in the backfield. That was just terrible ending to a great movie. I was upset by it. I'm not going to.
It's funny that you say that. Let me read you something that I saw earlier today. Yahoo Sports. I just like the beginning of it. Jay Busby writes for Yahoo Sports. Imagine visiting a 5-star restaurant, enjoying the diverse, mouth-watering brilliance of every course, and then getting served somebody else's pre-chewed scraps for dessert. That's what we got last night in the Super Bowl, a game that was setting up to be an all-time classic until it effectively ended on one of the most bogus penalties ever thrown in a championship game. And he goes on and on. I get it. I get it. I felt the same way. There was you knew that this huge payoff was coming at the end, which was they're going to hold him here, and now Philadelphia is going to have a chance. Jalen Hurts is going to have a chance to do something miraculous or just tie the game. And we got robbed of that. So it was like this great movie, and Andy Reid did his second half adjustments, and it was like, I mean, it really played out to script, and then the end just got mangled. And I do agree with what Dan Orlovsky said, which is if you're not going to call that all game long, what on earth would possess you to call it in that? And I see the jersey tug. It's so very slight, but like you say, you're not turning the receiver. You turn the receiver, no one's going to complain about that. And I go back to something else. I forget what other penalty it was, but no one would have been outraged if that penalty wasn't called.
No,
right?
Not at all.
That's how you can gauge whether a penalty is egregiously obvious or if it's just a ticky-tack foul. I don't think there's a single person who's going crazy that wouldn't have been called had it not been called. So was what it was.
The AFC Championship game when
that's
you have
what it was. Yep.
Those Monday after, and everybody was showing the holding by the tackles on the game-winning drive. Nobody was writing reports about. Nobody's writing op-eds about the holding calls because they weren't that serious. It's the exact same situation, Hawk. You hit it on the head. The tackle grabbed the end. He threw the football. It looked good. Oh, Juju's jersey pulled a little bit. Stop complaining. This is football.
Right.
Exactly, Hawk. You don't call it like that if you haven't called it like that from the opening kick. Why wouldn't we let Jalen Hurts get the shine he needed? The question, Patrick Mahomes is the best ever for the history of time. He's the new age of Tom Brady. And this little young running quarterback that got benched in college has a minute with one timeout left to go tie or win the Super Bowl. That's the moment you won in sports. That's the moment Jalen Hurts become that dude. You stole a whole storyline, a whole career-changing moment from the Philadelphia Eagles, and honestly, the NFL, because Jalen Hurts is going to start a quarterback for a long time in this league. That was terrible.